Guten Tag, Genossen. Want to crush some communists and crack back at dirty capitalists? Then you're in the right place to destroy Bolshevism and fight for a greater Germany. The Axis forces inside Enlisted currently consist of, obviously, German and Italian weapons, equipment, vehicles and soldiers, but also Austrian, Czechoslovakian, Hungarian, Finnish, Romanian, as well as Polish, French and Russian equipment, weapons and tanks are usable whilst playing this faction. The Axis are by far the most popular faction within Enlisted. Who doesn't want to use some of the coolest gear of World War II? MP40s, STGs, Panthers and Tiger tanks, and the iconic Stuka bombers. Germany has access to the largest variety of maps, as they battle both the USSR and the Allies. You'll only miss out on Pacific maps at this point in time, and that's more of a blessing than a curse. Right now, Axis dominates in vehicle warfare, with most of the strongest tanks at all tiers in the game. Sadly, most infantry weapons you'll have been power crept. They used to be some of the best weapons in the game, but over time the newest additions for other factions have superior stats. Don't worry too much, these weapons are by no means bad, but you are at a slight disadvantage on foot against Russia and America. The absolute first thing you should unlock in Enlisted for the Axis forces is the Carcano M41. By completing and purchasing this research, you will unlock engineers for Axis, as well as access to your first engineer squad. These are the most influential class of soldiers in the game. With their hammer and some labour, engineers are able to build rally points, ammo boxes, fortifications and weapons. Mainly, rally points are the key to winning in Enlisted, and the game and maps are designed around constructing and maintaining advantageous spawn points for your team, whilst removing the enemy spawns. Rallies are not only for the benefit of your team too. You are able to spawn on them, but additionally, you gain an incredible sum of experience and silver over time from your allies spawning on your rallies. Equip this engineer squad, then focus on unlocking upgrades and including engineers in all your squads. However, playing as Axis gives you the most options out of any faction in Tier 1 for your choice of bolt-action rifle. Based solely off their weapon stats, there are 4 rifles that you should choose from to be the main BR1 rifle for your army. You should choose from one of the following: the Gewehr 33/40, the Kar98K, the Carcano Mod 38, and the VZ24. When comparing the stats of bolt-action rifles in this game, it's important to identify the key characteristics that separate them in meaningful ways, to decide which are strong and which are poor. In my eyes, the best bolt actions have good rates of fire, comfortable iron sights, and equipable with bayonets. The 4 weapons I have outlined for Axis so far have superior fire rates to the Kriegsmodell and Carcano M41, which I recommend against using. Let's look at the starter rifle first. The Gewehr 33/40 has the lowest damage in this comparison. This means that while you will always kill a soldier in one shot, even into the 100 meter range, there is a higher chance compared to the slightly higher damage options that you will knock a soldier down instead of outright killing them. I cannot provide 100% accurate information on what determines when a soldier goes down instead of outright dying, but it's worth considering if you frequently down soldiers instead of killing them. Still, the G33/40 has the quickest reload and the fastest ADS speed of the group. Up next, the Kar98K. This is the most well-rounded of the 4 rifles, with the best accuracy, the second highest damage, and a good ADS speed. The only drawback of the Kar98K is the longer reload speed. The main benefit of the next weapon, the Carcano Mod 38, is that it has a 6-round clip as opposed to the 5 rounds of the other 3 rifles. The Mod 38 is the least accurate of the 4, and you want to make sure you only reload it in full clips of 6 for a 3.2 second reload. If you try to reload before that, you take a longer reload of 3.8 as you manually have to eject the extra bullets. Lastly, the VZ24 has the highest damage output and bullet velocity for Tier 1 Axis. The VZ24 will be the best performer at mid to long ranges, but has a slightly slower fire rate of 59. I recommend you to try each of these rifles out before investing in equipping your whole army with your favourite, taking into account the iron sights and stats to suit your playstyle. Thankfully, all of these rifles do come with bayonets, which is a huge upside. This is because of 2 primary factors. Firstly, having a bayonet allows you to forego equipping an axe to your soldier, as you are able to sprint charge with a bayonet. This is the fastest and safest way to traverse as a soldier. A moving target is harder to hit, and a faster target, you get the idea. Charging also gives you a 40% resistance to the slowdown that occurs when taking damage. Just keep in mind that you rapidly consume stamina whilst doing this, and completely exhausting leaves you impaired for combat as you recover. The weapons swing around wildly when you aim. Secondly is how powerful bayonets are in melee. Bayonets have a long reach, and a charge melee is instant the second you bump into somebody. The same goes for your AI soldiers, whose instant robot Terminator reactions make them deadly for enemies to get too close to. Bayonets also ensure your AI always kill in one melee hit. Lastly, a small additional benefit of bayonets, although not relevant to bolt-action rifles, is the 5% reduction in recoil that simply having it on the weapon grants. Concluding with the Axis rifles, the two options available for snipers are both viable. I recommend the Kar98K sniper over the Carcano for a few reasons. Higher fire rate, better accuracy, and a higher magnification on the scope. The Kar comes with an 8x scope, while the Carcano has a 4x scope. It's really up to you, however. Both are fine options. Just try to keep in mind that if you hang far back in the map, your sniper kills won't mean much and you will have little impact on the objective, which will likely cause you and your team to lose, and this directly impacts how quickly you progress in Enlisted. After you unlock and figure out which rifle you want to use, I'd look to unlocking SMGs for your Axis roster. Grabbing the MP28 will also unlock a medic squad for you to use. This lets you bring a squad of 5 soldiers capable of wielding CQC weapons, which are the SMGs and the shotgun. The MP28 itself is pretty poor. Low fire rate, low magazine capacity, low damage and accuracy mean you should work to unlock the MP34O as quick as you can. I'd say the best options for Tier 1 Axis in terms of SMGs are the MP34O and the Beretta M38A. If you want a premium feeling weapon with great accuracy, incredible fire rate and damage, go with the Beretta. However, this weapon's main drawback is the low magazine capacity of 20, meaning it needs to be reloaded often in between every 3 or 4 kills. If you're happy to settle for a bit less firepower, but gain a big 32 round magazine, go with the MP34O. The choice is really up to you. I personally go with the Beretta M38A, as I don't mind how often you have to reload. You also have the choice to equip the Luftwaffe M30 drilling. Shotguns are fairly balanced and Enlisted, the double barrels offering you good power for a further range than you might expect for video game shotguns. The drilling is exciting to use, but not incredibly viable long term. Sadly, if you know a bit about guns, we aren't able to use the third barrel of the drilling, which usually contains a medium bore rifle round. After pretty much sorting our infantry out, let's investigate the Axis forces tanks. One of the main reasons to play as this faction, and one of their key strengths in the game. I'd stay away from the Panzer IIC and AB-41, as these vehicles are only capable of attacking infantry, and struggle tremendously against other armoured vehicles. Jumping into the M14/41 as your first tank is a good idea. This tank, and the following Panzer IIIB and Panzer IIIE, come with APHE rounds for dealing with enemy tanks. This means your penetrations on target will be highly effective, but don't expect to have enough power to fight higher tier tanks too reliably. For that, you want to use the Italian tank destroyer, the Semovente. Inside Enlisted, this tank is referred to by the designation 75/32 M41. This turretless tank destroyer only comes with APC-BC rounds, which are devastating to even higher tier tanks. If you want to take out enemy vehicles, use this tank. If you instead want to be a bit more infantry support, whilst having a good cannon for enemy tanks, use the Panzer IIIJ. This tank has good HE rounds for shelling enemy infantry. German tanks also come equipped with smoke grenades, which you can use to cover your retreat or if you need to jump out and repair. Remember to leave the vehicle individually. If you jump out with all your guys, they're at danger and you could lose your entire crew pretty quickly. With ground options covered, the Axis has a variety of planes for us to bring to the skies. For Axis planes at Tier 1, I'd say you have 3 viable options to choose from. The weakest is probably the Potez 633. This plane handles well, with a strong pair of 200 kg bombs that are effective against tanks. The machine guns on this plane are a bit lackluster however, and the lack of any crosshair may make it difficult to aim the bombs and guns of this plane. Personally, the way the Potez looks is very cool to me, and it reminds me of an A-10 Warthog. Does anybody else see that too? Anyway, the other planes you should consider are the Industria Aeronautica Romuna 81C and the Bayerische Flugzeugwerke 109 E7/U2. The IAR-81C has a much more powerful payload, as well as double the penetration on its MG-151 cannons compared to the BF-109. The advantage of the BF-109 is that it is an incredible dogfighter, and you will be adept at picking enemy planes and bombing runs out of the sky. At some point, you should have finished researching 9 items, which means you have finished Tier 1 research, unlocking access to Tier 2 as well as some bonus equipment for your soldiers. This includes the throwable Molotovs, impact grenades and explosion packs, as well as binoculars and flasks. Binoculars are only really useful for tank crews, as popping out of the top hatch lets you use them to gain a clear view of your surroundings. Flasks are fantastic as they allow you to gain unlimited stamina for a full 60 seconds. Sprinting and jumping won't consume stamina for this time, but bayonet charging still will, although at a better rate than normal. Remember that if you deplete your stamina whilst charging, you will still suffer the inaccuracy recovery time of your weapon swaying. Explosion packs are almost mandatory in my opinion. Mostly it comes down to frag grenades and explosion packs for me. Frag grenades offer great infantry clearing utility, whilst explosion packs are effective against tanks, APCs and some player built fortifications. I wouldn't recommend using Molotovs or impact grenades, as these have received heavy nerfs in the past, leaving them pretty weak in their current states. Lastly, for Axis Tier 1 are our anti-tank options. I am tremendously disappointed by the German tank rifles. They are sluggish, lack penetration, and don't let the magazine fool you, it still requires reloading a new round after every shot. The magazine hangs off the gun for convenience? Why didn't they just make it feed into the rifle? Anyway, it's more important to use the squad you unlock with the PZB-38 to upgrade your anti-tank class soldiers for use in your other squads, more so later for the anti-tank weapons unlocked in higher tiers. The PZB-39 is one of the upgrades of all time, but I wouldn't worry too much about using it over the 38, they are both kinda meh. Now that we have completed our main roster for BR1 Axis, you should use the following as a guideline on how to set up your army. Bring an engineer squad and a rifleman squad, and I would suggest a medic squad over AT and sniper squads for your third slot. Bring your choice of tank or plane. For Axis, I'd say tanks are their strong point, so go with those. Level up all your squads and soldiers, upgrading everything in the menus, and equipping each soldier with upgraded weapons and extra gear that they need. For example, your choice of rifle, let's go with the Kar98K because it's iconic. In every soldier's pocket should also be an explosion pack, a TNT charge, a flask and a medkit. Clean up any additional researches you want or need. For example, grab the Tier 1 mortar as it's needed to progress to further anti-tank options, flamethrowers and importantly the APC in Tier 2. In the next Axis guide I'll cover which Tier 2 equipment is the strongest, as well as which order you should look to unlock them. Keep in mind though, it is generally a better idea to wait until you have unlocked everything you need, and migrating everything in one go, rather than equipping one soldier at a time with higher tiered gear. Equipping just a single Tier 2 or higher piece of equipment will up tier you, and the game will treat you as if your entire loadout is that tier. This means you will face stronger gear and likely more experienced players. Feel free to try out all weapons, vehicles and equipment to see what suits you. My video is only here as a general guideline to help you have an easier time getting into the game or just this faction, as well as hopefully saving some silver. You may find that my recommendations don't suit you or your playstyle. Feel free to leave any questions below in the comments, or if you have any suggestions for fellow players, share the knowledge. Thank you so much for watching. As always, the links to all my socials are in the description. Hope you have a nice day, and see you next time.